Hello everyone, welcome back to the final episode of Series 2 where we are discussing business rescue mechanisms past the COVID-19 pandemic. So I hope you've watched the previous episodes because we broke down the different rescue mechanisms. So if you haven't, please go back and watch those two before you watch this one. And so in this episode, I'm going to conclude our discussion, basically breaking down what we've discussed in these previous episodes. And then I'm also going to talk about one of the rescue mechanisms that we had not discussed in the last two episodes is amalgamation, or as most people commonly refer to, mergers. So amalgamation, as the word says, is a combination of two or more things. So in this case, as a rescue mechanisms, two or more companies come together and combine their liabilities, assets, loans, debts, everything. So they come together to rescue each other and combine what they have in order to stay afloat, and they become one. So that is basically the simple definition of amalgamation under Section 237 of the Companies Act. So there's a process for amalgamation. So the first step or the process is an amalgamation proposal. An amalgamation proposal has to be drafted between these two companies and how they're going to come together, how they're going to combine their liabilities, how they're going to maybe restructure their employment structure, their employees, whether they're going to keep them or not, their shareholders, whether they're going to have the same shareholding. So in that proposal, there are different things that have to be entailed thereunder. So one of them is structuring of the shareholders. Are they going to have the same shareholders as they had before? And if not, if they're not going to have the same shareholders as before, then they will have to restructure the same, and then they have to put the same in their proposal. And if they are going to have to pay off different shareholders, if they're not going to compensate them for their shares, they have to put in place a shareholding structure under Section 239 of the Companies Act. So these amalgamating companies have to put in place a shareholding structure. If maybe they had 1,000 shares, are they going to still have 1,000 shares? Maybe the other one has 100 shares. So they have to put in place a structure that's going to combine these two companies in order to have a uniform shareholding structure. So that is one of the things. Another thing the proposal should entail is how much are these shares going to cost, and if they're going to pay off the different shareholders that were in the different amalgamating companies. So if these different shareholders are not going to be a part of this amalgamated company, then a structure has to be in place on how they are going to compensate these shareholders for their previous shares before the amalgamation. That is the second thing. So the third thing that should be in that amalgamation proposal should be, in case they're not going to pay these shareholders that are not going to be a part of the amalgamating company, if they're not going to pay them in monetary terms, what are those other kinds of payments that are going to be in place? That is provided for under Section 139, subsection 1B of the Companies Act. So in case they're not going to pay them in monetary terms, what other mechanisms are going to be put in place to pay off these different shareholders before the amalgamation? The fourth detail that is supposed to be included in the amalgamation proposal are details of the amalgamation process, the management, how everything is going to run when the companies have amalgamated into one. So basically, once you have those four elements, as you read under Section 139 of the Companies Act, once you have all those details in your amalgamation proposal, then you can go ahead and amalgamate or merge as a company. And that is one method or business restructuring method that can save or rescue companies from going insolvent. That is the conclusion of the different restructuring methods or business rescue methods that companies can use to save themselves from going insolvent, and if it's an individual, from going bankrupt. So if I can take you back a bit, our discussion mainly was about business restructuring or business rescue methods. We first talked about the business rescue methods, which were administration, arrangement. So those two methods, or those two restructuring mechanisms, are supposed to help a company recover and stay afloat vis-a-vis these other two, which are liquidation and receivership, that are last resort mechanisms that generally do away with the company as a whole and the company ceases to exist. So if you haven't watched, or if you want to know more about the different rescue mechanisms that I've just listed, please watch the previous videos. That is episode 2 and 3, where we've detailed everything that has got to do with the business rescue mechanisms I just listed. And for amalgamation, I need not say more because I've just discussed everything, and maybe if you missed it, you can restart this video to know more about it. With that said, there are different methods or measures that a company or an individual can use that are outside the law or outside the ones that we've just discussed in our previous episodes, that can save a company or an individual and help them stay afloat. And those include, for a company, call on shares. So if you're a company and you're in debt and you have these people that have shares in a company and they've never paid for them, you can go ahead and make a call on shares. So mainly a call on shares is where you issue, a meeting is held by the directors of a company, and then they issue a resolution that they're going to make a call on shares. So once this resolution has been passed, all the different shareholders are notified that they have to pay up for their different shares. So that is a way of actually bringing more money into the company. So if you're a company and you have people that haven't paid up for their shares and you're in debt and you're unable to pay for your liabilities, so you can go ahead and make a call on shares. The other rescue mechanism would be out of court settlements. So you can go ahead and sit with your creditors and make arrangements to extend the date of payment. Maybe if you had like security and it is not enough and your debt is way above it because of the different interests that arise from a debt, you can go ahead and sit with your creditors and renegotiate your contract. So that is another way. Third method I would recommend is maybe going to the bank to get a loan to clear up your different liabilities with the creditors. You can go to the bank and get a loan and increase on your capital, make better decisions, and then increase on your assets. That could help you in staying afloat. But I would caution people into getting loans because that can also lead you into bigger debt. The other method would be conversion of a debt into equity. So you have this debt and you're unable to pay. Maybe you can talk to your creditors and maybe give them a share of your assets. You see? That is compromising. So maybe they are going to compromise on what you owe them, and then you're also going to compromise on what you have. You can give them shares in your company. If you are able to do that, you can give them assets of your company so that you can do away with the debtors as a whole. So with that said, I believe there are so many more different restructuring methods that are not prescribed in the law that companies have been able to use. And if you know of so many others, you can leave them in our comment section. You can write and leave your comment there. We'll be able to read it. If you have any additions to this discussion, please go ahead and comment your suggestion in the comment section. So this marks the end of this series on business rescue mechanisms post the COVID-19 pandemic. Please go ahead and leave a comment in our comment section about anything you'd like us to improve on, or any any other topics you'd want us to discuss in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe. I am Noe Prisha. See you in our next series. Thank you. Bye.